Good morning, Janice.
Good morning.
Today we're going to talk about 7 things you ought to know about the FIRE movement. And FIRE stands for Financial Independence and Retiring Early. Have you heard a lot about this, Janice? Are you familiar with this topic?
So not completely familiar, but I did a lot of reading to prepare, and it was very interesting. It sounds great, retiring early, right?
I think both halves, the financial independence and the retiring early, are attractive to most people. So let's dig into it a little bit.
All right.
I've also been hearing a lot about the FIRE movement. So we're going to take some steps to help you kind of understand what the movement is all about. So there's 7 things we think you ought to know about. Just this is kind of like a primer. And the first thing is, the reason this movement exists is because most people just straight up don't save enough. What did you think about that, Janice?
Completely agree. I thought it was interesting that they said only a third of Americans have anything saved in a 401k.
Right, so only a third have anything, meaning
anything.
So
like
2/3 have 0 in their 401k.
Correct.
Nuts. That's crazy.
It is. But if they think about it, I mean, I always go back in the day. It's only now that we started getting all this education of the importance of putting away for the 401k. I mean, it wasn't like you were in high school and they had a whole lesson on, okay, now when you get out and you get into the real world, you need to start planning for this. But we're getting to that world now where we are starting to plan.
Yeah. Another stat, the average couple, I guess this is the average American couple, why don't you guess? How much do you think they have in their retirement savings?
So if I would have guessed, I would have said 20,000, 30,000 maybe. That's what I would have assumed.
Yeah. Even that feels a little low, but I mean, I guess we're coming from the coasts. We might have different standards, but the actual answer is 5,000. The average couple has 5,000 put away from retirement. And if you take into account that there's probably folks with like hundreds of thousands stashed away, moving the average up, that means there's a lot of people with like next to nothing.
Like $1,000, which and I know that would last a half a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a result, most retirees are entirely 100% reliant on Social Security for their retirement income. And I don't know if you have any friends, colleagues, relatives, or parents who are on Social Security. It's you can't live on. I mean, it's very tough to live off that.
No. It's enough to just supplement just a little bit, but it's definitely not enough to live off 100%. No way.
I mean, in the city, the Social Security would probably not even if you owned your condo or co-op 100% outright, the Social Security probably wouldn't even cover the maintenance or tax. So that's like you can't even say that I already own my home because it won't even cover the upkeep. Right.
Could you, in theory, live in the city just on Social Security alone? I mean, most people can hardly afford to live in the city with an amazing career and jobs. It just seems like you'd have to change a lot.
No, it's actually possible because there's a lot of weird things like rent control or rent stabilized apartments.
Okay.
Or low income housing.
Still, you're talking tough.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So I think for a lot of people, this movement, the FIRE movement, is kind of a wake up call to sort of shock or shake maybe a generation into, hey, you need to start putting some money away.
Yes. And I think that's our generation of, hey, guys, let's get a move on this.
All right. So number 2, let's know, we need to know that it's the FIRE movement. There are some misconceptions about it. And one misconception is you got to understand it's not necessarily all about extreme saving. Was that a conception you had about this, retire early movement?
So you read these stories where people are retiring really, really early. And all I could think about was, they live in a tiny little box and they don't eat anything but dollar meals or, I did have that misconception, I think. But then you realize there's little things you can do to cut out that you don't have to go to that extreme. What do they call it? The rice and beans diet.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, those are some of my favorite examples of the extremes. Folks who don't turn on the heat and basically live in perpetually cold to save a few pennies per month or whatever they're saving.
Right.
And like you said, I can't believe this, but there are families who are not vegetarian or vegan, but who just won't buy protein like red meat to save money. I mean, come on, your kids got to grow. Give me a break.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is really expensive, but you got to eat.
I mean, I was watching something on Netflix called How to Live Mortgage Free. And, kudos to this family that was able to, pay off their entire mortgage. I think it was in like 7 years. Great job. They were in the UK. But to do it, they showed some footage of this family making dinner, and it was hilarious. I'm sorry. I mean, again, I don't want to be mean, but they were making pasta for dinner. And the husband was like, whoa, 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 that's like three pennies too many. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. That's how you're living?
Oh,
you're
that's
counting
hard.
the pennies?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I said penne, not pennies. Penne, like the noodles.
Yes, yeah, like penne. But no, I could see cutting back a little bit. You got to eat. You have to. Yeah. You have to. You can't be cold. I mean, I am all for one that if our house, our kids always say it's so cold in here, and I said, well, you're wearing a tank top. It's in the middle of winter. Put some clothes on.
Hilarious.
But you could save a couple of dollars by not having it blow so hot all the time. But I couldn't see the extremes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would agree that the extreme is like blasting the heat and then opening the window because you're hot. That's kind of wasteful.
Right. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you can make tiny cutbacks. One of the things that this immediately when I was reading this was, I won't call out the certain coffee company, but have you ever had coffee in one of those, places? And they're $6 a coffee. And some people have like 2 and 3 a day.
Yeah.
And if you do the math, I mean, you're talking like $400 a month in coffee. There's guys. So when you're talking about a little bit cutting things out to make this work, to me, that seems like a really obvious cut back.
Yeah, you got to be careful there, Janice, though. That's
I know.
That's one of those comforts that people won't budge on. So why don't we talk about where people can budge?
Don't mess with the coffee.
Exactly.
I get it. I go to my, I get my coffee, but
I'm not a coffee drinker, but I could see the look in their eyes when they don't have their coffee. So I just kind of know.
Oh, yeah. No, I will have my coffee every day for everyone's benefit and safety. So
since it's not about the retire early movement is not necessarily about extreme saving. Like there was a TV show where people were reusing the toilet paper. I mean, that's just disgusting. But anyway, the reality is it's more about strategic cutting out of spending that doesn't add value to your life. And you only spend on things that'll bring you joy. And this is kind of on that Marie Kondo type of philosophy. And if you want to do the inverse of that, what are some things that you're spending a lot of money on that don't necessarily bring you joy? And some of the big ticket examples would be, do you really need a new car? I mean, if your existing car is functioning and is not a danger and is pretty fine, the only issue is that it's older, will it really bring you, I don't know how much a new car costs, $50,000 worth of joy to buy a new car? I mean, you got to ask yourself that. If it does, then that's the answer. Then do it. But
right. You really have to weigh it out on something like that. Or could you get a $25,000 car and be just as happy than a $50,000 car? Small cutting, but.
So the third tip or the third information about the retire early movement is that they really seem to focus on how to move the needle. Meaning that I think the core of the movement is not about penny pinching per se. Or frugal living, which I think is another movement, but it's about doing things that are really going to make big swings and big changes. And the big one is not overspending on your housing cost. Okay.
And you have talked about this even at length in your book of getting what you can afford, not what your eyes are always bigger than your wallet, but just making sure that you can actually afford it.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be you tell me if this is prevalent in Pennsylvania. Not so much in the city just because the city's so expensive, but, just buying more house than you need.
Right. It is a problem. You're keeping up with the Joneses and it's a really pretty white picket fence, but did you really need that extra 3 bedrooms? Or is it something, but it's true. I mean, it's the same here as it is there. You look at it and go, wow, but you don't think about the financial consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I know movie rooms are becoming a big thing in Long Island. That seems a bit much to me, but whatever. I mean, I don't know what it's like to live in those areas, but just make sure it's worth it.
Right, make sure you really thought it out. So
housing typically makes up about half of your spending. So if you're able to, cut out a big chunk of that, so if you're able to reduce your housing costs by a quarter, you're really moving the needle in terms of saving on your overall budget. And that's why this is an area that's where you should really focus your efforts. Let's put it that way. And the second biggest area, which is the next tip, is transportation. So, geography permitting, get rid of your car. The reason they say this is because car payments, even a fully paid off car, comes with all sorts of ownership costs that people kind of don't think about. They kind of assume, oh, that's, you got to pay that, but you don't. So you have to pay for thousands of dollars a year in insurance, gas, oil changes, brake alignments, wheel rotation, tire rotation,
right.
Parking,
everything.
Yeah.
Yep. It does add up.
Yeah. So, Janice, are you in an area that's even conceivably walkable or by public transportationable?
Not even close. So that's
Okay.
a problem with some of the suburbs, is that
Right.
it's not walkable. But they're building these little, I call them mini cities, where you've got everything you need within, a mile radius. You've got the grocery store and everything, and they have sidewalks. So it is possible in the burbs, they say, but not everywhere. I know in our family alone, if we did without a car, I don't think we could survive. But there's things you could do. If you have to have a car, you'll talk about that. But you live in a walkable city now. I think you've said before you do not have a car, correct?
I have never. I only had a car for a short period in college, and I love not having a car.
I mean, that would be. I couldn't imagine not having a car payment, gas, and everything that comes along with it. We would save our family lots, but it's just not feasible.
One question before I jump into the tips to save if you do have a car. Is it not? I just don't know. So paint a picture for me. Is it possible to not have a car and live an Uber life? Is that even remotely possible?
So, possibly. If a different situation in our same home, if it was just, let's say, a couple, and they don't have a lot of activities, and they just have to go to the here and there every now and then, sure, possibly. But Uber is in our area, but not often. So sometimes you'll pay $15 to go 2 miles. Sometimes you'll pay $2 to go 2 miles. So it depends, because it's not like the city where you can get them everywhere.
Gotcha.
However, family like ours, we have 6 people,
Yep.
4 under the age, well, now one's 18, but they all have after school activities and no transportation. So Uber would never be a viable option.
Got it.
Because we usually on a weeknight, we have 4 different activities. 2 go to work, 2 go to an activity. And, let's not forget about the grocery store and everything. So Uber would never be a possibility.
All right. No, so I get it. That sounds very similar to a lot of my friends in New Jersey and in Long Island. So, okay, I get it. There are a lot of folks, the way their life is set up, you need a car. So here are some tips on how to make it not such a financial burden. Number 1, keep it longer. Don't upgrade it with every iPhone. Like not every 2 years.
Right.
I don't know if people do.
They do. Yes, they do. Yep.
Buy your car, don't lease. Apparently leases are a huge ripoff. I don't really know a whole lot about this, but I guess buying is better. Yeah.
Well, briefly, it depends on the situation again. For example, in my situation, when I went to get my newest car, to buy it would have been, let's say, $600 a month. Yep. Leasing it, though, was only $300 a month. So to us, it just made sense. Yes, we didn't have the equity on the back end, but if you look at that on a monthly, it was a little more feasible for the family. So it really depends. But if you're like some of our neighbors who do commute to New York every day, because you only get so many miles. So it all has to kind of work out in the end. But you're right.
That was actually my big concern. I've had a lot of friends who leased and ended up way overshooting their mileage limits.
Yes.
Which is,
It is a big problem, yes, because if you don't factor in, you're driving 70 miles one way, 5 days a week, you'll never keep it underneath the 12, 15,000 miles that's supposed to be. So that's going to cost you thousands when you turn it in.
Well, assuming you do buy, the next tip is to buy used or certified used, or I guess do they call it refurbished, or is that just
no? What are they called? They have all these fancy names now, but it really means the same thing. It's a used car, but
right.
Yes.
Because what is the saying that the moment you drive a new car off the lot, you immediately lose like $2,000
immediately. Yep, immediately. When you hit that first stop sign and you make a right, done. You've already lost some money. Yes.
So, I mean, if you can get a used car that's been inspected and I guess given the once over by a dealership or some reputable maintenance crew, you might be better off, dollar for dollar.
Absolutely. Yep.
Increase your insurance deductible for a lower premium, meaning if you're not really getting into accidents or getting your car stolen and you just maintain insurance because you kind of have to, get that, raise that deductible, and that'll save you a bit on your annuals. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, just drive less. That'll save you a lot on gas and toll. I don't know if you have tolls, but in the city, tolls can be ridiculous. I think it's $14 for the bridge now.
I realized that once driving over there. That was incredible.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like that. We have maybe $1 or $2 to use the turnpike, but and as far as driving less safe gas, you can also get a car that is better on gas. So your gallon of gas is going to go twice as far.
I want to keep this thing moving, but I do want to just point out one quick thing. This could all change with Mr. Musk over there doing his Teslas. He is now Elon Musk of Tesla Motors. He's arguing that because Teslas are getting so good at being self-driving, he's arguing that cars can soon be an asset and not a depreciating, a wasting asset, because theoretically in a few years you could buy a car and send it out as an Uber and on its own without a driver to generate money for you while you're not using it.
It'll be working on its own.
This is like Jetsons type stuff. This is crazy.
That is a great concept. Could you imagine getting picked up by an Uber and there's no driver?
That would be cool, but that part is not so much interesting as it is to me to say, okay, fine, I own a car, but then when I'm not using it, it's making money for me. I love that idea.
Right. Especially when you're in your office from 9 to 5, the car is out working for you for supplemental income. That's brilliant.
Right. And that actually leads us right into our next point. Number 5, 7 things you need to know about financial independence and retiring early. Make more money. It's not all about saving. It's actually not easier, but there's more upside to making more money. You can only save so much before you hit, before you're living like some kind of pauper, right? You can only go down by so much. But the upside is theoretically unlimited. You could always make more, right? So yeah, it shouldn't be all about sacrificing and cutting coupons and scrimping, right?
Right.
So if you're in a corporate career, which many of our listeners are, don't cruise. Really get that promotion, get those raises, compound them. We'll be talking about those in some future episodes. Get after it, right? Even if that means having to bounce around jobs, that's actually, I think, one of the best ways to increase the trajectory of your salary. Don't get complacent in your career. And whether or not you have your own career, corporate career, or are self-employed, I think, Janice, you'll agree, everyone in this day and age should have at least one side hustle. You should have some money coming in from somewhere other than your main source of income, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so easy to do anymore. There's so many things out there you can sell or do or freelance. I mean, there's so much.
And if you're wondering, there's nothing I can do, there's no way I can make any money. First, I think I had an episode a couple months ago, a couple of episodes, one with Tracy Minoloto, one with Letitia Stiles. We had a couple of these episodes where bottom line is everyone has something that they can make money from. There's something that you are good at that other people are not as good at, and they're willing to pay you for. And you just need to figure out what that is. It could be cooking a very particular type of food. You might not be a Michelin star chef, but you might be really good at cooking or making baby food. I don't know. I'm just making something up, right?
Right.
You might not be a world-class sculptor, but you might make these very kitschy types things that will sell very well on Etsy. Well, who knows?
Right. And it may even turn into like a relaxing hobby that de-stresses you from work and you're making money. It's like a win-win.
And we had a great guy on who is an impressionist, and he makes a pretty good pretty good side income. Actually, I think it's closer to his full income on Fiverr, doing voice impressions and sending out voice files.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so if you want to make a present for your husband where Darth Vader is saying happy birthday to him for like $5, he'll do it for you. Oh, happy birthday. I can't do it. That was like Cookie Monster. What am I doing?
That's okay. It's not your side hustle. It's fine. But that's cool. I mean, there's always something. You can sit there and think that there's something.
For sure. All right. Moving on. Number 6 of 7 things to know about the FIRE movement. This one, I like this one. Don't automatically raise your standards of living with any increases in income. And what that means is, I think a lot of people, the moment they get a raise, they're like, okay, cool, we're moving to a bigger house. Or, okay, cool, time for a new car. No. Instead of immediately increasing your standard of living, why don't you increase the gap or the spread between what you're earning and what you need to live, right? Increase your surplus, as it were, yeah?
Exactly. So we do that here, personally, that if raises or such, instead of, that just going right into the bank account, yay, a couple more bucks, it goes into the 401 or the retirements here. So then you were living that way before, just kind of keep status quo, but then your retirement goes up.
Right. Good enough. I mean, it feels like a little bit of common sense, but I know the temptation is strong to reward yourself for your hard work, but just try your best to keep the spread growing, keep the surplus growing. All right. The last number 7 thing to know about the FIRE movement, it's really helpful to surround yourself with like-minded people. So if you are of the mindset that you want to increase your surplus and increase your savings and increase or how soon you're able to retire, if your circle of friends or your neighbors or, your social circle have different priorities and they're more about living in the now, I don't want to, cast too many judgments on it. Everyone should live how they want to live. Then it's going to be hard for you to do your thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This is the definition of keeping up with the Joneses. So if you're with that group of friends that they eat out, every day and they're doing these big things and you want to do the same thing, it's going to prohibit you from doing exactly what we talked about.
And I want to take this one step further. If your friends are doing things or buying things and that you really want, and that you're finding yourself that you have to isolate yourself from these friends just to, save more, maybe the problem isn't your friends. Maybe the problem is either your innate desires, or maybe those are things that you want badly enough that you should just keep hanging out with your friends and find other ways to reach your goals. Because I don't think you should live a life of pure denial either, right?
Right. There's got to be a balance. I think with all of this, you have to find that balance of, like you said, not eating beans and rice, being able to eat out a little bit, but you don't eat out every day. You eat out every couple of days. Like there just has to be a good balance. So you're not living a poor life now to live a richer life later. And I don't mean, financial, just mentally.
All right. So this is our first foray into the FIRE movement. We'll be talking about this a little bit more. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Janice, thanks for jumping on, and we'll talk to everyone next time. Take care.
We'll talk soon.
Bye.